Hello, everyone. Hello, second year Faculty of Education. Welcome to your first lecture in your course English Phonetics and Phonology 2. And today we're going to talk about the first part of your book, which tackles a number of issues I summarized in this presentation. And I ask you to get your books with you because we're going to refer to some areas and some parts and some pages in the first and two chapters. Here we go. Yes, the first part starts with discussing a number of topics. First, we're gonna know what's meant by phonetics, what's meant by phonology, how phonetics and phonology interact with each other, how do they overlap, what are the boundaries that could be there between them. Second, we're gonna talk about IPA, which is International Phonetic Alphabet, and why it's important. And number three, we're gonna talk about phonological variation and the idea of the phoneme and the allophones. Okay, let's start. Phonetics, as you see, phonetics is a study of speech sounds, and it tackles three important things as far as speech sounds are concerned. Number one, production of speech sounds, transmission of speech sounds, and perception of speech sounds. And that's why we have three major branches of phonetics: articulatory phonetics, dealing with the production of speech, acoustic phonetics dealing with the description of the physical properties of speech sounds when they move from the mouth of the speaker to the ears of the listener in the form of sound waves. And number three, auditory phonetics or auditory phonetics, which deals with the role of the listener and how the listener receives speech and sound waves and turn that into sensory data and into meaning later on, to be suitable for the brain to process it easily. And phonetics also studies all possible sounds. Second thing, phonetics also studies all possible sounds of all human languages, and writing this in through IPA. Finally, phonetics interacts and intersects with a number of sciences, for example, anatomy, physiology, physics, and neurology. Okay, what's phonology? In order to describe sounds, you have two important and overlapping sciences, by the way, phonetics and phonology. Now it's time to talk about phonology. Phonology is narrowed down phonetics because babies, for example, they pronounce all sounds of human language when they are still toddlers or babies, and then they filter these sounds to pick their parents or the sounds in their parents' language, and by time they create neural categories which are which get fixed by time in the brains, and also they start to nurture some speech habits that remain fixed and become more and more powerful by time. Phonology also is the study of how speech sounds of a particular language are organized and chosen by speakers of this particular language, and how do they contrast with one another. Phonology also describes how these sounds, are organized in the brain, and because the way sounds are organized in the brain and the way phonetic categories are created also in the brain are based on generalizations. We are blessed, as the book says here on page, I think. Yes, we are gonna tell you later. We are blessed with this capacity of generalization and ignoring details. We do not, as humans, we do not look at all minute details. We generalize, and let's say, for example, it looks like signing your name many times, and every time you'll find that there are minute differences, but we do not care about that. And we consider all these signatures are yours. The same thing happens when we listen to a speech. Of course, every one of us speaks differently, and even if you say a particular sound or a particular word, you'd never say it twice the same way. So, but everything is so different. Every time you say a particular word, you say it differently, although you are the same person. However, we don't care about that, and we generalize, and this is blessing. This is a blessing, really. And however, our brains ignore the details. Okay, and for example, the sound "d" in words such as do, did, wits, and golden. Okay, we considered our brain considered that this is one sound, and it appears in certain words, and every time it appears in a word, it's getting or being influenced by the surrounding sounds, and it takes different forms. However, we say that "the" in do, and "the" in did, and "the" in wits, and "the" in golden are representing one phoneme, one abstract sound, which is called "the," and it contrasts with other sounds such as "t," for example. Okay, so this is the idea of phonology and how we store our minds and organize in our brains sounds of our language, and these sounds get fixed, and our speech habits also get fixed by time, and we start creating phonetic categories in our brain, and this is why we say that our phonological knowledge is really unconscious, and the phonotactic patterning or the clustering of sounds also, phonology is dealing with that and telling us what are the rules that you know organize how sounds get together in order to form words and so on. For example, in a word such as snail, which is not existing in English right now, however, according to the phonology of the English language, this word could be a possible word in the future because it obeys the rules of consonant clusters and clustering consonants. Because in order to have a syllable starting with a consonant sa and then na, it's okay. So there is no problem at all with the structure of this syllable. So even if this word doesn't exist now, but and it could exist in the future because it obeys the rules of the phonological, phonotactic patterning and of the language, of the English language. If you look at the word "fnel," on the other hand, it's not English, and it cannot be an English word even in the future because the cluster "fahna" is not acceptable or is not permissible in English. It was there in Old English. It was permissible in Old English, but in present day English and modern English, it's no longer permissible. You cannot start a word with fa and followed by na and so on. You cannot start a word with ha followed by ga. This is not acceptable. Of course, this word which is heg, there is no English word which is hig now. However, in the future, if this word people start getting it and giving it some meaning, and they agree among themselves to give it to a particular object, to a particular thing, or a particular meaning in the future, it's okay. Why? It's gonna be acceptable. Why? Because it obeys the rules of phonotactic patterning, the rules of phonology of English. And now I'm gonna move to you can, by the way, no, I just want to go to the importance of IPA, and you can go to page yes, you can go to page 5, bottom of the page, and the International Phonetic Alphabet. You know that this is and let's go to Google first to see what is this, the International Phonetic Alphabet. Yes, and why it's important to have this. First, the International Phonetic Alphabet is a system of sounds, of symbols that represent all the sounds of human languages. That's why it's called international. And it has been instituted in at the end of the 19th century, and it's being reviewed um, regularly by International Phonetic Association, a group of phoneticians who are doing such wonderful work. Now, here we want to say or want to know why it's important to know or to study or to identify or to learn about or use IPA, which is International Phonetic Alphabet. According to the book on page 6, for example, and on page 7, the book is giving us a number of reasons. For example, we use them in order to describe sounds. Okay, so we use the International Phonetic Alphabet to describe sounds. Okay, on page 6, we have another reason. We use International Phonetic Alphabet to describe unfamiliar sounds. Top of the page. In the middle of the page, we have another reason. We use International Phonetic Alphabet to describe and transcribe also exotic sounds which are rare, and you find them in specific languages. They are not common. For example, the click sounds and the click languages, such as sounds. This you will find it in many languages which are called click languages in South Africa and so on. So these are so many reasons actually, and but what is the to me what is the most important reason is that we use and we learn International Phonetic Alphabet in order to be able to know how to pronounce words easily and correctly and confidently, because English pronunciation and English spelling are two part are drawn apart, and they are not representing one another as they used to be in the past. So we find that the sound fa, for example, is written in different ways. It could be written as f, it could be written as ph, it could be written as ough, and so on. So having only one symbol representing every sound, this is interesting and really helpful because of the bizarre and the weird things that we see in English spelling, and how it is different from pronunciation. And we said before that English spelling is preserved in books, and it doesn't change, whereas English pronunciation and English speech is changing all the time, and that's why the gap between the two is getting wider and wider constantly. Okay, here we have a number of phoneticians who are giving us reasons. I don't think that they are different from what the book has mentioned. Okay, but let's look at this. This is a number of reasons given by Robert Matthews, retired from university after 40 years language teaching, Apple and TEFL and so on. He said that the IPA is a large collection of symbols used for precisely representing the sounds of every language in the world, and the tool can be used for many things. Number one, documenting the sounds of unknown languages, because many languages around the world are still spoken, and we need to document them. We need to give them some symbols. So documenting them and using IPA will help in this regard. Number two, jotting down client speech errors. This is used in speech language pathology. And number three, introducing foreign students to the sound system of language such as English, which has a complex spelling system, and correcting their mistakes. This is very good. I like these things. Also, we have Phil Cham says another thing. IPA is not based on the sound system of any one language. For this reason, it generally requires some training in phonetics. Okay. Someone else that it's inclusive. IPA is inclusive because every sound a human being can produce orally is included. They have symbols for the clicks, click languages, and so on. So these are some of the reasons why it's important to learn IPA and to know the symbols of IPA, in to speak and to know more about human organs of speech, how sounds are made, differences between languages, to be able to pronounce sounds and words confidently and correctly, and so on. Okay, let's go back to our lecture. Okay. Now I'm about to finish the first part of the book, especially the first chapter, and now let's move on to the second, which is the phoneme. Okay, and how it is the same but it's different, as we said before. Okay, let's go to the phoneme. Okay. Yes, when we hear speech, we can break it down into segments. Okay, so phonemes are segments, units, small units, and they are the minimal contrastive. Phonemes are the minimal contrastive sound units in language, and each phoneme, whether vowels or consonants, etc., is composed of a collection of distinct features of contrast. For example, the phoneme ba, you can say it's bilabial, it's a stop consonant, it's a voiced consonant, and so on. So each phoneme is a bundle of features which are constituted, and at the same time, each phoneme is pronounced in different ways according to the context in which it occurs, according to the word in which it appears. So a phoneme is a family of allophones. What are allophones? Allophones are sounds, different sounds of a single phoneme, different versions, variants of a single phoneme. Okay, let's yes. Phonetics is concerned with providing detailed description of all forms of phoneme, of allophones. For example, the sound the aspirated the aspirated as in tor, the unaspirated as in, for example, stay, the flapped as in, little in American English, and so glottalized as in little, nasalized as in tan, and so on. You see, in words such as tan, say, little or little, and curtain, and Eden, and so on. So every phoneme is a group, a family of allophones, and we do not find phonemes being there alone in our real life. We do not use p alone, we do not use t alone, we do not use k alone, but we use the allophones of all these phonemes, and we put them in addition to other sounds and other phonemes of other allophones of other sound, in order to make words, and words make utterances, and utterances create meaning, and all these things. Okay. Yes, let's talk more about that. Um, how phonetics and phonology overlap? Okay, how do they overlap? Okay. Before I go to this, I want you to open your books on page 12 and on page 13. Okay. And here the idea of signature and how we can sign several times, and every time our signature would be different. However, we don't care about this, and because we are blessed with this capacity of ignoring perceptible differences which do not make significant differences in the identity of sounds. Okay. um, on page 14, you can go please to move on to page 14. We're gonna look at the term phoneme and how it appears in the form of allophones. And on bottom of page 14 we have the k sound, and how it contrasts with the t sound. And in this case these are two phonemes. However, the k sound can have a number of allophones depending on where it happens and how it is surrounded by our sounds. For example, k in kitchen is different from k in copper, top of page 15, and so on. Uh, let's go to page 17, for example. You'll find that the book is talking about the phonemes and allophones of phonemes in Old English, and comparing it to present day English, and so on. I don't think that this will we shouldn't stay here for so long. And please open your books on page 18. Okay. And on page 18 we have the two phonemes ch and k, and how they appear in certain words, and each time they sound differently. And however, they sound differently. K sound differently in different words, but we don't care about that as long as we consider that k in cat, and k in kill, and k in core, and k in clean, etc. All these are different variants of k, and though they are phonetically different, but phonologically they are not different, because they constitute one phoneme, which is k. Okay, the same applies to the to ta. Let's look at the middle of the page. We have, for example, the sound ta. When it comes at the beginning, just like ka, it is aspirated. You say, for example, tan, and when it comes after s, it loses this aspiration, and you say spill. And when it comes at the end, it's sometimes preceded by glottal stop a, for example, that, and so on. So regardless of these forms of ta, and regardless of all these forms or allophones of ka, we consider that we are dealing with one single phoneme, which is ka, and one single phoneme, which is ta, regardless of its allophones. So we have differences which matter. And in this case we call them contrastive differences. For example, the phoneme k, if we change it by a phoneme, another phoneme, for example ta, and say call, instead of call we say toll, so we get two different words. On the other hand, if you make some change in the allophones, this doesn't make a change in the meaning. For example, if our Egyptian students say 10 without aspiration, and native speakers say 10 with aspiration. Of course, there are, phonetic differences and articulation differences, but at the end of the day, this is 10 and this is 10 the same. 10 British and 10 without aspiration, it's okay. This doesn't make a difference in meaning. Um, you understand? Okay. And here also we have the bottom of page 21 we have um, 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 a revision. Okay, well, I'm going to go back to this, but let's go to how phonetics and phonology overlap. We talked about phonetics and phonology, phoneme, allophones, and so on. But before I wanna show you some examples of phonemes. For example, yes, this is a phoneme p. Look at this and how it has different allophones, p at the beginning and b and unaspirate after sa, and b finally, where it shortens the preceding vowel. Okay, if you look at if you take another example, this is t. Okay, t normal, for example, take, it's aspirated, and t in water. Okay, it becomes a flap, and t in becomes in glottal stop as in kitten, and t becomes silent in winter, and so on. All these are allophones of a single phoneme. Look at another form here, p. Okay, aspirated as in paper and not aspirated as in a spell, because once you add an s before p, p loses this aspiration property. Okay, yes, these are forms of t. You'll find most of the allophones are associated with t and k. Okay, yes, I think that we're gonna talk about, yes, look at this, la. La is a phoneme. It's something in our brain, and it appears in our speech in the form of allophones. For example, at the beginning we have clear la, we have lip, and in here we have dark or velarized la after vowel. So say milk, milk. Okay, so these are two allophones of the phoneme la. Okay, okay. Let's see. Allophones. Yeah. Allophones are any of the variants making up a single phoneme, because we said that a phoneme is a family of allophones. Okay. Allophones do not indicate a change in the meaning of the word. We said before the word 10 with aspiration and the word 10 without aspiration. It doesn't make a change in meaning, although the two words are pronounced differently. Okay, yes. How phonetics and phonology overlap? Okay, by studying both phonetics and phonology of a particular language, we can understand the use of sounds. Phonetics is a group of sciences. Phonology also studies the higher level of speech organization. Sometimes people say that phonology comes first because we organize sounds, and then in our minds and our brains, and then our brains gives orders to our organs of speech in order to represent what's stored in this. Sometimes people say no, phonetics comes first. So it's still a controversy in this regard. Okay. Also, yes, let's go back to this. um Also, we find that, let's take this example, vowel length. This is measured in phonetics by milliseconds, and in phonology, this is a rule, you know, this is a rule. And we say that voiceless consonants shorten the preceding vowel, voiced consonants prolong the preceding vowel. This is a phonological rule. And phonetics interacts because it gives us proof, it gives us evidence that this is true by measuring the vowel lengths in milliseconds. We can give phonetics gives substantiate answer or evidence to this to what phonology says. Okay. Secondly, to say that phonetics deals with concrete things such as sound waves or movement of speech organs doesn't mean that the mental organization of sound is not concrete at all. Okay. um, it is, but that it because we uh, phonetics can something we can observe, we can measure easily, and so on. But today we have, thanks to technology, we have X-ray and MIR, um, T, um, the an MIR, sorry, MIR, which shows brain activity. We can see also phonology. The phonology of language can be how sounds, are organized, and all these things. We can know more about this. So phonetics then can be thought of as a way in which cognitive phonological representations are translated into physical terms. So we have first phonological knowledge, phonological representations. These are mental, abstract, and our brain gives orders to our organs of speech to translate this into sounds. And here comes the role of phonetics to describe that. I want you to come back to your book and have a look at the exercises. Exercise number 1, page 22. A learner of English as a second language has the following pronunciation. Okay. Note that sh is a symbol of words, sounds such of the first sound in a word such as ship, and the also is the first sound in a word such as the. Look at this learner of English. For example, the word that, he pronounced it as that, that. So what does this mean? It means that this learner doesn't use the and replace it by the. Why? Maybe in his native language he doesn't have this sound, which is the, and that's why he replaces the in English by his native the, and he says that instead of that. Okay. If you look at the word, let's say sing, look at the transcription. Sing, he sing shing. Okay, shing. Okay. We have languages, for example, some words in German, they stay, for example, Stephanie, and so on. Fish, no problem with fish. Dog, no problem with dog. Leader, look at leader. Oh, leader. We the learner is saying it leader, so he's replacing the by the, as in that, the first example, and replacing the by the, doing it the other way around, the opposite of English speakers. And said, no problem. You say miss, it's pronounced mish. Okay. I miss you. This is an example in when you have miss followed by ya, but this maybe this is a property in his native language. Look at head. Look at loss. Look at bush. Okay, he's pronouncing it as bush, bus, bus. Okay, so maybe there are some sounds because we have sh here in his language and there is sa, but the organization, because this is phonology, the organization, the appearance of sounds, whether initially or finally or in the middle, and the influence of sounds on one another, this is the core work of phonology, rules of all these things. Okay, so in the light of all these things, let's see how I ask you to look at how do you think this learner would pronounce the bold-faced consonants in daddy. You know, daddy. Guess how would he is going to pronounce daddy? Remember that the comes in the middle, and leader he pronounced at leather, so most probably is going to say daisy. Okay, either. Okay, the in the middle, the in the middle could be you look at the leather, no problem, it could be either like that, loose. Okay, ship, what do you think of ship? Huh? It could be sib. Pass, it could be bash. Dish, it could be dish. Usher, 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 it could be usher, and so on. And please look at the second. You are required here to come up with minimal pairs. For example, with words starting with ma and na and so on. Remember that minimal pairs are very important in order to tell us if words or the changing consonant or vowel is really a phoneme or not. So let's say minimal pairs. Yeah, minimal pairs of vowels. Let's say this. Yes, look at this. We have bat, 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 bat. Okay. Here when we change b, sorry. Yes, when we bat, bat, sat, sat, mat, mat, and so on. When we change ba by sa, replace it by sa, we get another word. So sa, this proves that sa and ba are two different phonemes. Okay, when we change a and replace it by a, we get another word, and this means that a and a are two different phonemes, vowel phonemes. Okay, look at mat and mat. When we change a and replace it by a, we get two different words. So there contrast here, and changing a phoneme leads to a change in the whole word. So this is a change that matters, and this is a phonemic change, not an allophonic change. Look at pen and pen, 10 and 10. Changing a sound leads to a change in the whole word. So this is, as long as change happens and meaning difference happens, this means that what we changed is not an allophone, it's a phoneme. A phoneme. Okay? And of course there are images. If you look at images, you will find so many words, minimal pairs, for example here. Yes, so many lists of minimal pairs. Please try to come up with this, and this is how, yeah, boat and but, minimal pairs. They are the words are what's meant by minimal pairs. Pair of words which are identical in everything except in one phoneme. So boat and but, they are identical. They start with p and they end with t. But what's different is the vowel here. So this is a minimal This is called a minimum pair. Bought and bought, coat and cut, done and done. Minimal pairs. You understand? Let's take another sound. Another. We have mouse, mouse and mouse. They are equal. They are identical in everything except in one. Some and some. Some and thumb. Thick and thick. Think and think. Pass and pass. Bus and bus. Pass and pass. Okay? So whenever we have a pair of words which are identical in everything except in one phoneme, and this phoneme leads to a change in the meaning of every one of them, they become two different words, so we consider them a minimal pair. And this strategy is used in order to illustrate that the words or minimal pairs are minimal pairs because of one difference in one phoneme. Okay, it's a test. It's a litmus test. Okay, thank you and see you next time.